right, everybody. So we have back on the podcast, Joey Szatmary. How you doing, man?
Living the dream, as they say.
Living the dream. So where are we?
We are in the Den, an unmarked location somewhere on the map where people try to get strong.
So it's my first time here. Found out that it's like 35 minutes from me, 40 minutes. So it's awesome that we made this happen. I think I literally reached out to you. It might have been this week.
Yeah, it was.
I think,
it was
and I was
very
like, let's
fast.
do a podcast. And then there's a connection. Things moved really fast all of a sudden, and now we're training together. Training together. I don't know if I would call it that. I watched as he deadlifted 750 for 5 today.
750 for a set of 5. Yeah,
which is nuts. And then DK here did 800 for 5.
800, and then Taylor I think hit 820 for a set of 5.
Oh, he did. I don't even know if I saw that.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
Yeah, that's pretty nuts, man.
Totally nuts. So you said you don't have a competition too soon, right?
No, so everything was kind of weird with COVID going on. I was originally, this is probably last April, was going to do what's called a Platinum Plus for Strongman. And basically, if you win that show, you get a ticket to the Arnold, which that's what I was training for at the time.
Yeah.
Everything with COVID happened. All the shows basically got canceled. So at that point, I didn't really know what to train for. And what was pretty cool at the time, as we talked earlier when we were training, is I had done a collab with Mike Israetel.
Yeah.
And since all the gyms in Philadelphia had shut down, Mike didn't have a place to train. And, with the Den, not many people being here, it was pretty much like a closed-off environment. Mike and I became training partners. So he trained with me for, I would say, like maybe 4 to 6 months. We saw each other like pretty frequently throughout the week, which was a really cool experience for me. I did a lot of hypertrophy training, and it was nice in the sense where it was almost like one step back for 2 steps forward, because I put in a lot of time to just increase the size of my muscles, doing all that volume and that training style. I learned a lot from him, just being a really cool guy and training partner. Then as things started to open back up, I kind of got that competitive itch, and I had done, I call it just like a tune-up show. So basically, it was actually at the gym. It was PA Strongest Man. I wasn't promoting it, but someone needed a spot to host it. Somebody I knew, so I just offered them to do it at the gym. Yeah. So I competed in that in November, and ironically enough, or coincidentally enough, it was my first strongman show I ever did 3 or 4 years ago. Was PA Strongest Man. Okay. So I had done that, but I went in as a heavyweight, being 270 pounds. Normally I compete as a 242 or lighter. So I put on some size, and cool enough, I won that show. And then since things have gradually been opening more and more, I'm just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Long story short, there is Official Strongman Games, or OSG as they call it, which is basically like Worlds for some lighter classes. So for the 105s, they take the best 105s in the world and go head-to-head in Strongman. So I think I'm going to take a crack at that this year. You have to qualify online, and then I'll go out there, do my thing, and that'll probably be the last time I'm a 105, just because I'm going to probably be, I'm 270 now, so trying to cut down to be under 232 is it's a big weight cut, and I'm tired of doing it. So that'll probably be the last time there, and then after that, we'll see what happens. I'll probably just keep Strongman as like a fun hobby I enjoy. But honestly, man, like I just love training, and I like to see how far I can push my performance with the the weight that I'm at, and I feel like I maximized that 105 class. So for me, it's been fun just seeing the changes in my body and the numbers increasing. Doing it very slowly and steadily, but yeah, it's kind of where we're at right now.
So, and I mean, obviously, I've had you on the podcast before, but if people are just tuning in, and we'll have links to everything you do, I don't know if we need like full of everything you've done up to this point, but obviously, very strong guy. You're competing in Strongman. Just for people who maybe don't know, was that like the first competitive thing you got into? Was there a powerlifting background first?
Yeah, so first off, I want to make sure you link my OnlyFans account, and this,
I will do
we have to get that out there.
That was actually the way we got connected.
It was for sure, and I wanted to get, instead of doing this at the end of the podcast, we're going to address it right now so that it's like a double plug. You know what I'm saying? No, but no, in all seriousness. So real quick, I mean, I got into sports when I was in middle school and high school, so I was always kind of in that athletic environment, which kind of always leads to like the high school weight room stories, right? Where everybody squatted 500 pounds, never above parallel. These were all ass to grass squats. But I kind of really also loved just training in general. I was that guy who would go to practice, hit the high school weight room, and then I would drive to the gym and do like bodybuilding. And I loved doing bodybuilding. I don't know if you remember this back in the day, but there was Animal, and Animal had a forum. And I was that was like the coolest forum ever. And I remember like being this young like teenager, I'd wear the Animal t-shirts all the time. Yeah. People had no idea in my high school what that was. Really? But there's like such a subcategory of maybe people who did.
Yeah.
But
where's Frank McGrath these days?
Dude, he's sponsored by the supplement company that I am now. He just came on board.
Oh, wow.
And I used to, so this is cool. There's a historical gym called it's just called Long's Gym. It's in Feasterville, which is only about 25, 30 minutes from here. Okay. And McGrath would train there all the time. So I remember being a teenager, I would go down there every couple of weeks with my friend's dad, who was a pro bodybuilder. And I remember just like seeing this guy, and I was like starstruck.
Forearms just for days.
Massive. And what was crazy too is I don't know if you see him recently. He's covered in tattoos, like tattooed all over. And back then he didn't have any because he was a bodybuilder and just a beast. And that was kind of against like bodybuilding to have all his tattoos. So just small aside, but I was like that teenager with my gallon of water, making chicken breasts, eating vegetables, so I was always involved, and it was very therapeutic to me. But anyway, fast forward, went to college, small private college, Albright College, Division III out of Reading. Went there for college lacrosse. Only was there for 1 year, and then kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. So I went to some community college and just trying to figure everything out. But in that time, I was getting involved with just general strength and conditioning, and it kind of segued to when CrossFit was really booming. So inevitably I joined a CrossFit box and did that. I was good at it, but it wasn't something I like loved. What I was drawn to about CrossFit was the Olympic weightlifting. Okay. So anytime there were like clean and jerks or snatches or anything of that nature, I was like always just like, I want to keep doing this. And one of the owners at the time said, I really feel like you should try to compete in Olympic weightlifting. I don't have much experience with it, but I know a guy who runs a team. And at that time it was Leo Todd, and he ran East Coast Golds. And he had got me in contact with this guy. So basically I started doing an Olympic lifting only program. I competed at that and did pretty well in competitions. And then outside of comp, like my total basically, so I snatched 340 pounds. I've clean and jerked 425 pounds. So whatever that is in kilos, I mean, that's a decent 300 plus total. Yeah. So did that, and then that to me was really monotonous. Like the training was kind of lonely. Like you're just on a platform all the time. Programming was pretty much the same: clean and jerk, snatch, front squat, back squat, press, like over and over and over again. And there weren't many gyms around here to do that. Yeah. So I felt kind of like a loner. I actually would drive to Jersey and train with a girl. Her name was, they called her Zelic, but it was Rozelic Rivera. And she was on Team USA for weightlifting. So it was cool to just have a coach and a training partner who's like really awesome. Like I'm talking, I think she was like 116 pounds, and she's like clean and jerking like almost 300 pounds. Like, what I mean? Like this was, like she was a freak, man, back in the day. But that's kind of the background with that. But the monotony is kind of what I wasn't a fan of. Yeah. So needed to get into something else, and at that time actually had torn my meniscus, just got it scoped, and that was kind of a good time for me to assess like where do I want to go with this, what I want to do. Yeah. And the funny thing about Olympic lifters, not all of them, but most of them, like if you were to see me then being like 220 pounds telling you, the weights I could put over my head, you probably would have been like you look good, right? But like I wouldn't think you could put that much weight up or over your head. And in my mind, like I wanted to also look like the part. Like when I saw, powerlifters or strongman at the time, like these dudes look like freaks. So I kind of was gearing more towards like, this is the way I want to look. And I didn't know anything about strongman training at all, but I was on YouTube, and I always tell the story, but there's a guy on YouTube when I was just kind of looking up like strongman workouts or maybe like how to build strongman equipment. Yeah. And his name was Brian Alsrew, and I believe he's been on your podcast. Yeah. And he had started his YouTube channel, and kind of just like we had talked, I didn't know this guy was in Maryland, and it's like a 2-hour drive for me. Yeah. So I had just reached out to him, and I said, hey man, like I just want to try some different stuff. At this time, he didn't have, maybe it was like 30 or 50,000 subscribers. So yeah, it was a good amount, but I think he's got over 200,000 now. So it's kind of early on in his career with like YouTube and stuff. So I said to him, I'd love to come out and train. And I'm sure he got this all the time and probably wasn't expecting like, a decently strong guy to show up and like really want to get after it. Yeah, right. So I had shown up, And man, he put me through the ringer. Like we were doing like I remember Atlas stones. It was like stone to shoulder. We did some log clean and press, and he was really impressed by how much, like, without ever touching these things, I could do.
Yeah.
And then he killed me. Oh my gosh, it's hilarious because it's on YouTube. Is we had to do a keg medley, right? So the keg medley, basically, it was maybe like 50 feet. There's 3 kegs, and it goes like light, medium, heavy. Okay. And you basically have a time limit where you have to pick up the keg, run it down and back, get to the next one, and do all 3 for time. Okay. And I think it went maybe like 200, 250, 300 pounds. And I never, first of all, I thought I picked up a keg rate. I didn't even know until Brian taught me. So I was doing it wrong like my entire existence. And he gave me a time frame where he basically said like if you can get this done within like 30 seconds, like that's amazing. And I got the first keg, go down and back. And I think it like I was on pace to do good. Mm-hmm. Anyway, grabbed the second keg and I think I'm doing good. And all of a sudden, my hamstrings just start like seizing on me, like that pure like leg is shaking out of control. And I finally actually did get the last one, but I was like way over the time limit. And I just realized like, man, like I have a real appreciation for whatever the sport is. Right. And I thought it was cool. So him and I became really good friends. And soon enough, I just signed up for that PA Strongest Man, which is what I ended up competing in for my first competition. Okay. Doing well in that, and then from then on, that was the first one I ever did like 3 years ago was PA Strongest Man, and I had won that, which is really cool because obviously I live in PA, so that was just like a fun little thing. And everyone's like, "You're the strongest man in PA." I'm like, that showed up that day, guys. Right? Dave and I have talked. There's some freaks out there that don't have Instagrams and probably never tried this sport, but at the same time, granted, it was cool for me. So. Yeah, ever since then, man, I've just been involved with the sport of strongman. I promote it. We have a lot of shows here. We have a gym that has strongman equipment, which has been really cool. And just getting people involved with the sport, like everyday gym goers who don't know what the sport is or haven't touched any implements. Like I have so much fun teaching people that. And like I said, just growing the sport. So that's kind of where we're at. But yeah, I do that. I make YouTube videos. I love learning and collaborating with people. And like we had talked about earlier as well, I know a little about a lot, and I have a pretty good background, like a good solid base of information and experience in strength sports.
Yeah, for sure, man. So you touched on training with Mike during the shutdowns, which is awesome. I actually didn't realize that because for those who are watching, if you saw the podcast with Steve Paulsonella, he owns Iron Sport Gym, and that's like half an hour, I guess, east of me. And then this gym is about 40 minutes north of me. So there are some serious lifters there too, and actually some people who had lifted at both. But Mike was training, I think, at Iron Sport for a little while and got crowded, so he came here. So how was it? I mean, obviously you have a significant lifting background, but was it different than anything you had done before? Did you actually notice physical changes from training with him? And most importantly, how many reps in reserve did he leave you at?
So I'm still standing, so I don't think he killed me, although he may have tried to kill me. No, but what was cool with Mike is we talked a lot about like evidence-based stuff, right? So back in the day when I was bodybuilding or going to the gym, if you hear my dog scratching maybe on the microphone, that's my 3-legged dog Zeke, who's awesome. It's some cool
sweetest dog
ambient noise for you. I know. Zeke's awesome. But back then it was like you found the biggest dude in the gym and you did whatever they did. Right. And like whatever he told you, you just swore by it, and that's how it worked. And now we have so much research going on that we didn't have before. And Mike's done a really good job of basically taking that research and making it sexy and easy for people to understand. So moving more towards that, I was just fascinated by the information, and more I would say the structure of things. Like it's probably typical when you're getting into lifting to just do like a set of 12, 10, 8, whatever, maybe keep it the same weight, like as long as you get a pump, etc. But there's a lot more that goes into it. So with Mike, it's like we should be structuring our programming blocks just like you would for strength training, with the same type of like feel to it, as that we need to be able to measure these types of things by using reps in reserve, or making sure that we're getting a good stimulus to fatigue ratio, and obviously making sure that we're getting progress and gains, because if we're not, like we need to change something up. So I learned a lot about that in just strength training, but to apply it to hypertrophy was pretty cool. And definitely in that time frame, I learned a lot of good concepts. One of the biggest ones was getting full range of motion with a lot of things, where I felt like, coming from a strength sport background, if you were to see me do rows, I would do rows at like 315 plus, and do it for like sets of
rows.
and going like nuts, basically using my entire body to row this barbell. So it's kind of eye-opening when Dr. Mike puts 115 on the bar, makes me do full range of motion, really contract my lats, and that's as heavy as I can go for like these first sets. And also on top of that, like there's actually a video on YouTube where I train legs with him. And this is going from pure strength training. I never did more than like, I would say 8. And the first set of hack squats, we probably did like 40 reps, dude.
Oh, geez,
like,
you were probably dead.
Oh my God. I couldn't even, like, this is funny story is I say a day or two after, of course, the DOMS is setting in now.
Right.
I had a coach or do strength training for a teen softball, team, and they were in the gym, and we thought it'd be fun to play like tug of war, like against Coach Joe.
Okay.
Normally, I'm all about it, right? So this is 2 days after, bro. I have like a couple girls on the other side of the rope.
Yeah.
My legs hurt so bad they literally yanked me across my gym floor.
Yeah.
And they're dying. Like, I've never been more embarrassed because in my mind I'm like, if only these girls knew that I had just demolished my legs. All they thought is like, this guy's a huge pansy.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
But no, overall the experience was great. It was cool to be able to pick his brain and talk to him about stuff and just talk to him about training. And the thing that's cool about Mike is sometimes we kind of put these stereotypes on like lifters, especially like bodybuilders who have to go hard, and we watch these motivational videos like Ronnie Coleman, and that's all cool, and like there's a time and a place for that. But with Mike, it's just like we train hard, of course, but it was also fun too. Like we got to just kind of like shoot conversation back and forth between sets, crack some jokes, and the work was put in, but at the same time it wasn't like, okay, we need to kill ourselves every single time in here. We can't crack jokes. We need to only listen to music that makes us want to kill babies. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
which is interesting because I don't know everything that Mike's put out, but I remember him saying something along the lines of like, well, hey, if you just want to like kill yourself in the gym, that's fine. But like, you need to know that that's not the best way to do it. And like, there's a structured way that's like the best way to do it. So I would have expected that he had everything like, this is what we're doing. These are the exact reps and sets. And like, we're staying serious during the workout. So it almost like humanizes his approach a little bit to hear that it's like that, because I too feel like you can get like, when I was really just coming up in this area, like in high school, it was like rest times to like the second and just like, very specific. And then when I got into college, that's where I met like some of my closest friends, and like we would just kind of bro out, and it was really fun, and my results didn't suffer at all. If anything, like we talked about before, there's the camaraderie that kind of pushes you. So I think it should be fun. I mean, even unless you're like, I don't know, maybe at like the top level, and even then a lot of the from the golden era, a lot of those guys did lift together, and both powerlifting and bodybuilding. I think there's something to be said for enjoying it, right? It's not just like put your head down and be a robot.
Yeah, and like you said, like he definitely had the programming all structured out, so we had Excel sheets and broke down every single day, like reps in reserve. He explained like what should we be feeling this first week of the meso, like kind of the end results, and as well as when things were going a certain way, we had to tailor it like we would tailor it. So like the thing about Mike that I think is super cool is, like you said, like he's very human, and obviously he cracks a ton of jokes on his videos, but at the same time too, he's a genius. Like when I would ask him a specific question, and he always made me feel very comfortable. Like he never made me feel stupid. Like I never felt like I couldn't ask him anything, and he always would make that clear, like, Joe, like ask me anything you want. And I would say that, and you could just tell he would change right away to like PhD, Dr. Mike, like Brainiac, and it was in the most like non-intimidating way possible, and you could just tell he knew his craft. But like you said, like we just had a great time, and I think that's huge. Like people need to know, especially if you're gonna do it for a long time, you gotta have fun, you gotta enjoy it, and I think a lot of times you get caught in such the minutia of it where they need to take a step back and just kind of look at like the big picture. Like, am I gonna be a gold medalist or a pro this? Like probably not. So like, does it really matter? Say you're doing, let's just say, conventional deadlifts, and you hate conventional deadlifts, but like you keep trying to do them, but maybe you really just like trap bar. I'm throwing my trap bar plugs in everywhere I can, and like trap bar is just something like you enjoy, and it still is delivering close to the same, stimulus. It's like, then do that, because it's going to make training a lot better. You know what I mean? And that's a big thing.
For sure. Did you notice? And you said it was a few months that you were training together, right? Did you notice physical changes, the muscular development changes from working with him, from doing that type of work?
Yeah, I definitely did. Like I said, I thought in my mind it was like one step back for two steps forward, meaning in the sense of I had to kind of go back to doing all this volume and kind of do this bodybuilding. But our thought process is like, if we can put on some good size, it's only going to help benefit, like obviously cross-sectional area of the muscle. Like if we can grow that, and I'm already pretty decent at this, then now we're just maximizing how much stronger I can be long-term. Of course, getting back into strength training, it felt kind of like crappy because I hadn't done it in so long. But like now I'm like seeing and reaping those benefits of like,
so I was going to ask.
Like we took like, 6 to 8 months. I think I continued even after he had moved of just like pure hypertrophy training. So like one thing I was telling you about is I feel like my back had gotten a lot wider. I feel like my shoulders had gotten a lot stronger. And even like in terms of isolation of like my hamstrings, right? Like we put in a lot of isolation work to grow muscles that typically I didn't just put time into. So absolutely from a physique standpoint, I felt like I got great growth out of that. And also because it was such a new stimulus to me where I've been doing strength training for the last 5 or 6 years, and we say we do hypertrophy, but like this was like bodybuilding. This wasn't like strength hypertrophy or power building in a sense. It was like we're doing isolation and I mean also some compound lifts, but a lot more isolation movements, way higher volume than I'd ever been used to. So now kind of moving forward, I want to do like a cut, like a real good cut, and try to get as shredded as I can. And I think that's when I'll really see like the difference in my physique, because I can already tell being bigger that my muscles have grown. But I'm excited to kind of see like what's underneath there and the difference of when I thought I did a cut like years ago.
I was gonna say, when was the last time you got really cut?
Well, I kind of had experimented a little bit when Mike was here, and it wasn't anywhere near like me pushing like my full potential. But even from that cut, I noticed like, all right, like, man, like I'm pretty pumped with how I look right now. But before that, it was like it had to have been like years, like even if I thought maybe I did, like I really didn't. Like I was kind of just half-assing it, But now having a little bit more knowledge and being a little bit wiser, I'm like mentally like prepared and excited to do something like that.
Are you still? I mean, I know we trained arms at the end today. Are you still planning on keeping some of the hypertrophy training that he was doing, like that kind of stuff in it all, or maybe having blocks of that?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, so for me, it comes down to just like looking at, let's just say like a year-long schedule. So what I've really noticed that has helped me is to plan out things in like a yearly factor, where in Strongman, like I may only do 1 or 2 shows a year, which when I do that, it enables me to dictate the time at which those shows will be, how much time I need for like a true strength block or whatever and peaking, and then outside of that I can put in a good amount of time for hypertrophy. So I would really like to utilize a good amount of hypertrophy work outside of that, and still try to keep, like if I do hypertrophy, like one thing I think I would have done a little bit more of is just kind of keep maybe some deadlifting in very lightly, so I don't get.
Oh, you dropped it entirely.
Yeah, so I didn't do deadlift for like 6 months.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like,
wow.
It was a while. Like not many people knew that. And my deadlift suffered when I tried to do it, but it's like now it's feeling better than ever. That's kind of like that mental like 1 step back, 3 step forward. That's just because it was untrained, But if I do it again, I'd probably keep those movements still somehow in there. But in terms of movements, like a lot of the exercise that we had done and the principles that he applied, like I wasn't applying and I wasn't doing. So it gave me just a new like huge bank of information and tactics to pull from.
Yeah, and so it's interesting because you guys are all pulling insane numbers here, right? I mean, at least relatively speaking. And, I was telling you before, I haven't done like heavy deadlifts in a long time. But even when I go up to like the 315 range, which like, I probably could have done 50 reps with at one point, I will feel like little tweaks here and there. And that, part of that is probably just jumping into it too quickly without slowly going up. But when you look at sport injuries, right, and like the research tends to show like they usually will measure in like per 1,000 hours played or things like that, and soccer is actually like the highest. Basketball and football are up there. Bodybuilding, if you count that as a sport, is like the lowest because it tends to be higher reps, lighter weight, slow and controlled. Powerlifting is like one up above that, and then like strongman and weightlifting are above that. So it's not, I wouldn't say it's like a high injury risk, but when you get to like the weights that you're doing, have you dealt with any like significant injuries that have held you back, or nothing too big?
Honestly, not anything recently. I think because I've gotten a lot better auto-regulating my training and fatigue management. So I'm pretty intuitive with my body in terms of like when I know I'm pushing the throttle a little bit too hard, and I've gotten a lot better with stress management from, just like sleeping, nutrition, and like I said, just better programming.
Yeah.
So that's helped a lot. And the thing that's cool about Strongman is I actually really don't use the implements too much until I'm getting close to the competition. So primarily I just train like a powerlifter and bodybuilder, you know, and if I want to sprinkle in some implements here and there, I can. And I've also, for Strongman, like you get so much exposure with the implements.
When you just to pause you, for people who don't have like a strongman background, when you say implements, can you kind of like what that means?
For sure. So for Strongman, if you've ever watched like World's Strongest Man on TV, maybe you haven't, but basically an implement would be something for the event. So typically in a Strongman competition, there's 5 events, and you're usually going to have like some sort of deadlift, which could be with a regular deadlift bar, or it could be like with an axle bar, a big fat bar with, no give to it. And it can be all different heights of a deadlift. So it's very, there's very varied with lots of different ways to do these lifts, but there's usually going to be some sort of press. So when you're talking about presses for Strongman, it could be like one of those big circus dumbbells that you would have seen in like the circus, but they come in all different shapes and sizes now, or it could be like a log. So they actually have used real logs that you load with weight and you clean it up and you press it overhead, and it just has a big circumference, so it makes it a lot harder than a typical clean and press. But then it could be like Atlas stones is a famous one. That could be an implement you use. It could be pulling trucks, it could be carrying kegs. Anything like that. So there's a lot of different implements in the sport, but for the main part, you're going to have, like I said, you're going to have a deadlift, you're going to have a press, you're going to have a medley, maybe some sort of load or stones, and then there's typically like just one fun event that a promoter can just pick from based on all the different weird strongman stuff out there.
That's what's so interesting about it is like, when you are a bodybuilder, and I mean, there's like, there's physique and then bodybuilding classic and stuff, but like, it's the same everywhere, right? Powerlifting, it's the big 3, right? I mean, you can go to like a bench only competition or a strict curl variation or whatever, but for the most part, it's the same. But with Strongman, it seems like competition to competition can be quite different in terms of the actual events you need to do, right?
Yeah, so it changes. So, I mean, people make the joke, but it's like CrossFit for like strength sport athletes. And in some sense, that is correct because their events do change, which would be comparable to that. And you always have to be training depending on what it is specific to that. But at the same time, I'd say the more you do it, you kind of get a grasp for the implements typically that it could be. So I don't like to over specialize in those implements. Like I'd rather just figure out whatever the show is asking for, train really hard to just increase my overall raw strength. And then as I get closer, I'll start to specialize more with the implements. The other thing is the implements, depending on what they are, can be super taxing. It's like if you've looked at like a yoke, which is just a huge thing you put on your back and you load it with a ton of weight, like that's pretty damn fatiguing. So I don't want to be doing tons of yoke throughout my training just because there's a better stimulus to fatigue ratio with other movements.
Right.
So that's just the way I look at it, and it seems to be working pretty well. And honestly, when I first got into Strongman, I overdid it with the implements. Like all I did was just want to get exposure with them, which I guess was okay because I had never used them before, but I probably would have benefited more that first year of just trying to get stronger versus overdoing with the implements. And that maybe gave me a couple of tweaks and bangs here and there because I just wasn't aware of how to auto-regulate my program better with fatigue. Like I would do like a yoke all the time. I would be deadlifting like on top of all these other things. And in hindsight, it's like, yeah, dude, like you probably were just pushing that throttle way too hard for way too long. But no, just from basically to answer your question, just from, experience and talking to really good coaches, for me, I've had a good grasp on my fatigue management. So other than like basic tendonitis, maybe my knees or my elbows, for the most part, I've been able to keep myself pretty healthy.
Yeah.